It's starting. Cool. It's starting to record now. Let me share my screen, and I'll just give a brief background about myself also, and then I'll tell you what we'll do in this particular session. Sharing screen. Admit. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, hi, my name is Yash Rathi. I was also a GDBA student only in Prepzone in the year 2020. After that, I joined IIM Calcutta, and I think I'll have to keep admitting people. Listen, let me check how to close this.
I think you can make one of us the
Yeah?
co-host and we can keep admitting them while you present.
Great. Okay. I'll make someone the. I'll make you the co-host then. Just a second. Um, okay, making you the co-host then. Just keep adding people whoever wants to join then. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start the session now. So, my name is Yash Rathi. I was also a GDBA student in 2020. I joined IIM Lucknow after that. Again, I've interned at Bain& Company and will be joining them full time in May this year. So this session again particularly was this something that I took up because it immensely helped me in a lot of things. So I'll add on the things that how can you use this session effectively. मतलब जो भी data I'll tell you all the information that I give you. But I feel knowing such things is very important that it displays two things. A, that you have immense knowledge and you're someone who likes to read these things. And secondly, that you're someone who is very detail oriented, because when you quote statistics, when you quote data points, when you quote information about indexes, either in VAT, either in your GDs or in your PIs, people generally like it because they feel that you're someone who backs their claims with knowledge and information. So that is why this session is very important. Okay, let's start the session with 6 important indexes that I think were taught to me also and is something that I want to pass on also. So I think those will be very important. Then we'll have 2 indexes that will be homework, and then I'll tell you how you can use those indexes effectively also. Okay. Again, I'll be open to question. Once I explain one of the indexes, then we'll open questions. If you have any questions, we can sort them out. Again, I'm also not a very informed person on everything about these indexes, but I'll try my best to answer your questions because I have read a lot about these indexes because they interest me generally. Okay. So the first index that we'll talk about is the Human Development Index. And why Human Development Index is kept as the number 1 is because it becomes very important to check on what are the different things that a country can be, say, marked upon or a country can be compared upon. And human development is generally kept at the highest level, right? And this index also comprises of 3 particular metrics. That is life expectancy, that covers everything of your health and wellness. Second is education, that covers everything, education, teaching, and knowledge of the country and literacy rate. And third is the per capita income, that covers the income part or the wealth part of the country, right? So very 3 important metrics, the health, the education, and the wealth of a country are calculated by this particular index. That is why it can be quoted at a lot of places and also becomes very important to know about it. So very brief description about it is it is a composite index of life expectancy, education, that is the years of schooling, and per capita income indicators. A country scores high in HTA when the citizen lifespan is higher, education level is higher, and the GNI per capita is high. Now, what is GNI? We'll discuss that also later on. And I'll also break down what are the 3 metrics, these 3 metrics, and how are they compared, right? Very basic information about it. We'll first know about that. First, very important thing is it is developed by Mahbub ul Haq. Why it becomes important is because he is an Pakistani economist. Again, we don't see a lot of, say, things that come out of countries, Asian countries like, or South Asian countries like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, right? So if you get such an important index from a person in Pakistan, it becomes very important. If someone ever asks you in a PI or ever mentions about, okay, what do you think about Pakistan? Do you think has Pakistan ever given us anything important in the world? This is a very important thing and a very knowledgeable thing that you can always pass on in a PI, that the Human Development Index was created by a Pakistani economist. So again, a very good piece of information. Again, this report is every year released by the UNDP, that is the United Nations Development Program. India's ranking in this particular index is 132 out of 191 countries, and it ranges around this also. So last year also in 2021, so this data is for 2022. Again, nothing has come out for 2023, obviously. Last year also in 2021, we were ranked around 131. So that is something that you can tell. Again, you don't need to remember these rankings by heart. You can just say we rank around 130th out of 190 countries, right? That is also a good enough metric for them. It's just about the confidence level that you exude and the ballpark number that you give out. That is more important. And the top countries here are again Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, Hong Kong, Australia. So something very common that you will see in a lot of these indexes is that a lot of these top ranking countries would be either Scandinavian or Nordic countries, because they generally have a better, say, standard of living, a better health outcome, better education outcomes because of the government, whatever policies that they come out with, right? So बहुत सारे indexes में you will find this common. So that is something that you will find later also. Again, Human Development Index ke these three parameters that we've discussed, life expectancy, education, per capita income, that will break down in the next slide. Let's understand the advantages and disadvantages first. The advantages of using HDI are two. One, that it uses both social data and economic data. In a lot of the other indexes that we see later on, you'll see these indexes are either only economic based, that ki wealth के ऊपर है या फिर income के ऊपर है, या they are only social based, कि it could be either only health based, only education like literacy, या gender के ऊपर है. So you won't find any ऐसा index which has a accumulation of so many new things. So that is a very good advantage of HDI, that it measures a huge broad range of information and is not tied up to only one information, and thus becomes more accurate to understand what a human development index could be, right? Again, I'm not saying it is the most accurate, but could be more accurate than other indexes that we have. Second advantage that we have is that the information is updated annually. So it's not something that is done every 2 years, every 3-4 years. Every year it is done, and from a range of people. So as it can be as accurate as it can get. So those are the advantages that we see with HDI. But again, I generally don't agree with these advantages. I generally don't like any of these indexes because I feel these are very restricted in the idea that it wants to present. So again, the disadvantages that we have for HDI is A, it lacks consideration to any new age metrics, right? Like technological development kitna hua hai, contribution towards global initiative by the country or the humans there, any civil advancements, what are you doing for the people generally. It isn't considering them. It is considering only three very important things, but not considering any new age things. So if a country is trying to progress in any of these metrics, any of these sectors, it won't be calculated in Human Development Index. Even though technology can be a very important thing to say better the life of people in that particular country, right? But it can't calculate that. So that is one of the disadvantages. And second is that again, too much consideration is put in, say, the wealth creation, the GNI, that is the global, that is the net income of the people, right, in that particular country. So countries who have high income levels but very poor education or very poor healthcare, they can easily hijack these rankings. So बहुत सारी countries are who don't put effort in these other things but have a lot of income, right? So they can easily hijack this. So that is why HDI can be considered both advantages and disadvantages. But we have given out the information. Again, if someone ever asks you about HDI, you have an abundance of information that you can give out. And second thing is, you don't need to memorize these things. These things would come out very naturally from you. Even if you read these notes once or twice, you'll easily grasp this information very fluidly also. So if you want to make notes of yourself right now, then you can. Baki, we'll share the recordings in the PPT also. Now let's come to what are the metrics that we discussed for HDI. The three metrics were the three indicators: A, life expectancy; second, education index; and third, GNI index, right? For life expectancy, we see the life expectancy at birth. So how many children are being born and can survive till a particular age, that just shows on the life expectancy of a particular country, right? So that indicates the health metric of that particular country. Second would be education index. Again, education index for HDI again is very specific. That is the number of schooling years someone has gone through and the expected years of schooling that someone will go through in the future. For example, if you see someone who will be just say studying till a college level, so we can calculate the number of years for education till that time. So that is the education index that it uses. And GNI index would be the GNI per capita of that particular country, and that is PPP adjusted. So I think most of you would have attended that that session that we had for current affairs on why dollar is becoming expensive in comparison to rupees, and we discussed PPP very briefly and very in depth during that session, right? So again, for GNI, I can give an explanation. Ki GNI is the GDP of that particular country, that is the gross domestic product, plus the money that is flowing from foreign countries into our country, minus the money that is flowing out of the foreign country or out to foreign countries from India. So that is how you calculate GNI. A very brief formula if someone asks you, but I think you would have had those economics sessions. If not, then you will have them very soon, wherein all these formulas would be very easily clarified to you. And again, PPP, why we adjust these GDP and GNI to PPP is because the metrics or the purchasing power parity for every country is different. If you buy a hamburger in India, that would be cheaper than what you get in USA, right? So the income level at USA would be far higher than what would be in India. That is why we adjust it for PPP. I think there are questions also that are coming up. You've raised your hand. Just a second.
Yeah.
Just let me cover this particular metric and then I'll take up questions. Right. So these are the things that are specific for HDI. Again, a few other things that you can find could be problematic is just say for health, if you want the overall metric, you're not seeing other metrics. What is the health level or the conditions of a country? Again, life expectancy gives out a lot of information, but more new metrics or more information could have been included to make this index more comprehensive. That is all about HDI. I'll take up questions on HDI now. Yes, someone, yeah, Amar, you had a question, right?
Yeah. So in literacy rate, you mentioned about the number of years in the schooling.
Right.
Aren't we considering the quality of the education there?
Right. Again, those are the disadvantages or the limitations of these indexes. Because I also find it very difficult to maybe get a very good sense of the quality of education in a particular country. Because again, that could only be done through surveys or could be done through a, say, smallly populated survey, right? So I think those metrics cannot always be included in these indexes. So they try to give out the best metric that they can. Again, you can always know the number of years someone is attending school. So that is the metric that they've used. But totally agreed with you. If someone ever asks you how can you improve those indexes, that is through better, say, surveys, better investigation on the quality of education, on the quality of healthcare. That can be an improvement to these indexes. But totally take it.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on HDI? Again, HDI, if anyone ever asks you what do you think is the most important index that India can ever measure itself, yeah, how do you think, even if a question you get in VAT, PI, GD, anywhere, how is India in comparison to the world? What is India's stature in comparison to the world? In different discussions, you can always add in HDI. And HDI, generally, other people won't have a lot of information. They would know HDI generally kya hota hai. But if you can give detailed information about what HDI is, I think you'll always get brownie points. So very important index. I don't see any other questions for HDI right now. Cool. Take it. Let's move forward. Let's move to the second index that we have. Just a second. Cool. The second metric that we have is ease of doing business. Again, ease of doing business again becomes very important because India as a nation is growing and is primarily looking at wealth creation and becoming a more stronger economy, right? So doing business and opening business and the promotion towards entrepreneurship that India is sending out, I think ease of doing business thus becomes very important. So if you ever get a question in your PI regarding, say, entrepreneurship, regarding how is India doing for its business people, even budget can sometimes you will always find budgetary, budget put in for businesses, opening businesses for small to medium businesses. Wahan pe ever this discussion comes out, you can easily send out these points for ease of doing business. So wahan pe you can use this metric very easily, right? So again, the important notes that we have for ease of doing business, and a lot of controversy was also happening in 2021. If you remember correctly, jab ease of doing business ranking came for India, a lot of controversy was done because the ranking for India was very low and the ranking for certain countries like China and other countries was very high, which India also had a problem with. So we had different investigations done for it. And thus this particular ease of doing business metric or index was closed down. So it was cancelled after 2021. Thus, I'm still teaching you this because it becomes very important so that you can always discuss ease of doing business metric tha kya and why was it important. But if someone ever asks, but do you know that ease of doing business metric closed down, you can always have the reasons also and you can tell them kya reasons they for it shutting down, right? So again, ease of doing business is a metric wherein you can easily calculate or understand that how easy it is to open up a business in a particular country, and how is it to function that particular business in a particular country. And it measures around 10 to 12 indices to get that single metric for ranking. About 10 to 12 keep on increasing. In 2020, I think it was only 8 to 9. Then it increased one more indice in 2020. And I think it keeps on increasing every year whenever they find more important metrics to be included in this particular ranking. Again, it was developed by 3 economists from World Bank. Don't need to remember these names or who are they. The only one thing to remember is that the report is released by World Bank every year. Okay? So India's ranking in 2020, the last ranking that we got was 63 out of 191 countries. And this has improved significantly. From 2014, when we were ranked 142, 63 is a very huge jump. I think one of the biggest jumps that any country would have seen in this ranking. And the reasons are very direct in front of you, because of the focus on entrepreneurship, because of the focus on small and medium businesses that we have given out, because of the ease in all these getting licenses and establishing your company, and under the Companies Act, just promoting your company, all the things that we've done. I think that is a significant improvement that we can see in the ranking. And the top countries for this ranking are New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Denmark. Again, very huge business hubs, huge hubs for opening up new companies, and places wherein you can see low taxation rates, maybe you can see low requirements for licenses, easier license adoption. Those countries are generally in this ranking. Again, 3 very important things that we need to look at before understanding what are the metrics for ease of doing business are the trajectory of what has happened with this particular metric. So the first thing happened in 2018. These indexes, such as ease of doing business, are always under say radar, because people always feel that if they're ranked low, there should be some mistake. And generally, sometimes power dynamics and say corruption do creep into these indexes. So in 2018, the chief economist of World Bank announced that they would be correcting and recalculating all the rankings and scores that they've given for the last 4 years, because they saw that repeatedly they were unfairly penalizing Chile because of the leftist party that it had, the president that it had. So that is the reason when the chief economist got an idea about what is happening, and since the World Bank was taking part in this very unfair trade practices, they chose to pause this ranking for those years and then recalculate the ranking for the last 4 years. That was done in 2018. After that, once that was rectified in 2020, a lot of data irregularity issues were coming up. So several major newspapers like say Financial Times, The Economist, Wall Street Journal, they reported that data for countries like China, Azerbaijan, UAE, and Saudi Arabia, the countries who hold a lot of power and who hold a lot of wealth, were being suspected to inappropriately altering their data. And this was done in tandem with the World Bank. So they saw this, and World Bank also announced in 2020 that it will pause this ranking and will investigate further. In 2021, when the results for this came out, they released that a lot of such malpractices are happening in this particular report, and they're not able to control it also. Thus, after the 2018 mishap and the 2020 data irregularity issue, they closed down this particular metric in 2021. And after that, no new data points are coming out. So this is important to understand why the trajectory of ease of doing business has happened. But again, very important to always quote ease of doing business, because even if you're not mentioning the other slide that I'm presenting, the parameters that are used for ease of doing business are very important. So ever again, if someone asks you, what has India done to make life of business people easier in the country? Yeah, what are the points that you think could be implemented to make it easier for more businesses to open in a country? These metrics can easily be, say, inserted in that question. So we'll just go one by one about what these metrics are. The first metric is starting a business. So procedures, the time and the cost and the capital that is required to open up a new business in a particular country, that it measures. So that is the first thing. Second would be dealing with construction permits. So again, it is a very timelined approach. First, you look at starting a business. Second is about how you get construction permits, because you'll have to open up factories, you'll have to open up offices, you'll have to build those. So if the procedure, the time and the cost that is required to build a warehouse or to build a factory, that is considered here. Jitna kam hoega, it would be better for the particular ranking of that particular country. Third would be getting electricity. Now, what is the procedure, what is the time, what is the cost for getting electricity permits, and also the electricity cost for that particular country is involved in this particular metric. Now you could see that in India also a lot of places are marked as special economic zones. In those areas you get permits and these electricity for a lower cost. So those things also help a lot in, say, getting a ranking higher in these ease of doing metrics. right? Next becomes registering a property. Again, time and cost that is required to register a property. Next becomes getting credit. Now, how strong is the banking sector for that particular country? How strong is the government in providing, say, credit to the banks, to providing loans, and how it is transpired to the people? That is also seen here. So legal rights, kitne credit information indexes kaise? That helps us getting the credit idea. Then would be protecting investors. Now, protecting investors is important because a lot of people also invest out of the country and also from within the country into these businesses. So how easy it is for the shareholders to get information, how easy it is for the shareholders to get their returns, dividends, what is the liability on the directors. These things are mentioned in this protecting investors point. Next would be paying taxes. Again, countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia rank higher in these metrics because the tax rates are lower, right? So in India, again, number of tax paid, hours per year spent in preparing tax returns, and the total tax payable is also a very important metric. India ke liye it is again the different slabs that you guys already know about. Key India mein how the tax structure works. Then 3 more points: trading across borders, enforcing contracts, and resolving insolvency. Again, when you are getting permits, getting contracts, and closing down your businesses, how easy it is, how easy documentation is, ki kitne kam number of documents are required, and what is the cost for this particular thing. That is again calculated in this particular metric. So that is all about ease of doing business. Again, open to questions for this particular metric. If anyone wants to ask questions, so raise their hands. Baki, I think very easily understood why this metric becomes important. Any questions? Yes, Asta.
So, sir, as you mentioned that this ease of doing business has shut down now as a metric. So, are we? So, has there been another metric in its place that people have been referring to, or is it that there is no alternative to it as of now?
None that I know of, because again, this ease of doing business report was also called the doing business report by the World Bank. I think those are one of the most credible reports that we can see. There would definitely be alternative reports. So all the indexes that I'm talking about, there would be a lot of alternate indexes that can be used for these particular metrics. But the only thing would be the how easy it is to verify those numbers, and how much you can trust those indexes is the major point. So generally, even if we have alternative indexes, because there's no trusted source, so maybe we are not able to find something like that. But again, I'm also not aware of any alternate index that we have for this. I think something that we can maybe search out once after the session, and then maybe we can discuss about that particular index, if anything is done apart from this world ease of doing business index.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Yeah. If anyone ever asks you, ki, why aren't we using any other index? The answer is very simple: because of the legitimacy that you have and the verifiability that you have for these indexes, right? So I can also release an index for myself, but there won't be any verifiability of those numbers. I can't back those numbers very easily, right? So trust nahi hoga, so you can't use those indexes.
Correct,
But again,
yeah.
2-3 things very important for this. A, you should know the trajectory of ease of doing business, ki why it shut down, because this was in news in 2021 also, and it was a very big news. Secondly, if anyone ever asks you how can you measure that is a country good for opening up businesses, these parameters are very easily something that you can tell. Again, don't need to memorize. Even if you ask me right now, 4-5 things that I would know would be these things only. Would be how easy it is to say get construction permits, how easy it is to get loans, how easy it is to get electricity and water, how easy it is to pay taxes, how easy it is to close down a business, right? These 4-5 metrics everyone would remember. But now you would have backing for this information. You can always say ki these are correct metrics because it was calculated in the ease of doing business. So anyone would accept your answer then. So that is the information that we had for ease of doing business specifically. Cool. Since we have no other questions, okay, let's move on to the next index. The third index is the World Competitive Index. Now the question that you asked earlier, the index that I used to follow, or that we were also taught, was the Global Competitive Index, and that again shut down due to certain reasons. But new data was getting out, and it was generally published by the World Economic Forum. So this is an alternative index that is being used now, World Competitive Index, and this was also released since 1989. So SNEK, it is a new index, but it is just that the Global Competitive Index was released by World Economic Forum. So people used to follow that, but now since it's not being released, so now we follow the World Competitive Index, right? Again, they are not releasing data for their own reasons, so that information we also don't have. But again, the legitimacy behind this index is also very credible and very trustworthy. So the World Competitive Index is the IMD World Competitive Yearbook that is published every year, was first published in 1989, and is a very comprehensive annual report that is a worldwide reference point for the competitiveness of these countries. So competitiveness of these countries क्या होते हैं, that we'll मतलब examine through the components that we have, but it again analyzes and ranks these countries and understands that what all these countries require and how they manage their competencies to achieve long-term value creation, right? So that is what the World Competitive Index does. This report is every year released by the Institute of Management Development, that is based out of Switzerland itself. India's ranking in this particular index is 73 out of the 63 countries that have signed up for this index, and it has improved from 43 from 2021. And there are certain reasons for this good performance. That is also something that I've captured in this particular slide because I felt that is something that everyone should know about, right? So again, the 4 components that we examine in this particular index are A, performance of the economy. Again, performance of the economy considers a lot of index, so a lot of metrics. So this particular index has a lot of metrics and a lot of different criteria that it marks its particular components. As I've already mentioned, 334 competitive criteria hai. So very difficult to name everything, but everything that you can think of, right? GDP, leke, GNP, GNI, things like that gives out a very strong indicator of that economy that is calculated. Secondly, would be the efficiency of the government, that how easy it is for policies to come out, how easy it is for bills to pass on, things like these. Third would be efficiency in the workplace. Again, this particular metric, this particular index analyzes metrics that are very important for a country to become competitive. So economy is a very important thing for that. The government is a very important thing for that. The workplace or job prospects for a particular country is very important. And lastly, the infrastructure development, how developed the particular country is, how easy it is to habitate in that particular country. That is also a very important metric to understand how competitive the country is, right? The third particular metric we have is the efficiency in the workplace. This calculates everything, things like say how the quality of jobs that we see in the country, the gap we see in the country for the particular say genders, the median and average pay that we see in the particular country. Those things are also considered in the efficiency in the workplace. And second thing is, again, the happiness quotient of people in these workplaces, the number of hours people are spending in these workplaces, how developed are these workplaces. So a lot of things in that particular metric. And last is infrastructure. Infrastructure could include multiple things. It includes how are hospitals, offices, schools, universities built in the particular country, how are dams, roads, bridges developed in the particular country, and how is even digital infrastructure developed in the particular country. So instead of only the physical, say, infrastructure, that the construction worthy infrastructure, the digital infrastructure is also calculated in this particular index. So all in all that you need to know is that to understand the competitiveness of a particular country, we use the World Competitive Index. We rank fairly well in the top 50th percentile, that is the 37th rank out of 63. And third is the 4 metrics we use, that is performance of the economy kaisa hai, how efficient is the government, how efficient is the particular workplace, and what is the infrastructure of that particular country. So knowing this is also enough for you. Now, talking about the reasons for the India's good performance would be A, major improvements were done in the retrospective taxation in 2021. Retrospective taxation is something that I would want each and every one of you to go back and read about it. There would be 2-3 major cases that also you can see. The Carn Oil case, the Vodafone Hutch case, Idea Hutch case. Those are very important retrospective taxation cases that happened in India. So if you read about those cases, you will get a better understanding. And retrospective taxation is very important in your PI terms also, right? So everyone should go back and read about these. I have not included because उसका बहुत detailed एक version हो जाएगा. So go back, read about what retrospective taxation is, and come back to me with any questions. I'll mention my phone number also at the end. कोई भी questions होंगे, reach back to me and we'll discuss this particular context. Second is re-regulation of a number of sectors. कि drones आ गए, space आ गए, geospatial mapping allow हो गई. So infrastructure, when I was talking about, so a lot of digital infrastructure is also included, and India is slowly and slowly progressing in these areas. So drones, space, and things like these, we are slowly and steadily progressing in these areas. So infrastructure also is developed. Third would be significant improvement in the competitiveness of Indian economy. We know India is opening up its economy. It's inviting foreign investments also, and doing a lot of things for the businesses also, and doing a lot of things for the small medium businesses here. So that is the reason कि हमारा ranking क्यों बढ़ रहा है. And last would be कि India has now become a driving force for fighting climate change. COP26 summit also happened, and the new COP summit also came out. So we know कि India ने क्या pledge कर रखा है, and how India is moving towards net zero say emission also. So those are, and this again comes under the performance, the efficiency in the government and efficiency at the workplace also. So all these metrics, all these good performance is helping India say reach or increase its ranking. So the only important thing for you to understand is what WCI is. Secondly, what is India's ranking here? Third, top ranking countries कौन सी? Again, Scandinavian and Nordic countries बहुत easily visible होगी. And fourthly, कि चार important metrics क्या है? Economy, government, workplace, and infrastructure. Those are the 4 economic metrics. That is all that we have for World Competitive Index. Any questions if you have on this, I can clear them out. Turn off my video for a second. Yep. Digvijay, yes.
Sir, why there are so less number of countries in the rankings of this World Competitive Index?
Right. So what we need to understand is कि जब भी ये indexes मतलब global forums या government forums निकालती है, तो a lot of countries sign up. And secondly, if these indexes are more older, then also a lot of countries sign up. So indexes like HDI, indexes like ease of doing business, these are taken out by, say, World Bank, World Economic Forum, UNDP. So a lot of countries sign up for them. Now, indexes like the World Competitive Index that is released by, say, an Institute of Management Development, even though could be a global institute, not every country would be, say, verifying their information with these indexes, because again, it takes a lot of money also. And not everyone considers all the indexes very important, right? So indexes like World Competitive Index, getting a number of 63 is also a very huge number. Getting 63 countries to sign up for you. So that is the reason.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else? Till now, we have discussed 3 indexes, matlab the 3 most important indexes that you can use in any of your WATs, any of your PIs, any of your GTs. Key, what is the human development index of a particular country, how easy it is to open a business in a country, and how competitive a country is. Any question you get even in the vicinity, just put on these statistics and you will sail through very easily. Cool. Seeing no questions, let's move on to the 4th index. The 4th index is the Global Gender Gap Index. Again, it becomes important because gender ke upar there's a lot of discussion always in PIs also, in VATs also, in a lot of places, right? GDs mein to it's a very common topic. Gender kya hai? Matlab gender disparity, gender ratio, things like these. So again, Global Gender Gap Index helps here. Ki whatever VAT, GD, PI, whatever you get on gender, you can easily give out data from the Global Gender Gap Index, and they'll be impressed on the knowledge that you have. Cool. So notes on what the Global Gender Gap Index is. It is a difference between women and men as reflected in all social, political, intellectual, cultural, economic attainments or attitudes. And it serves as a compass to track progress on relative gaps between women and men on health, education, economy, and politics. So 4 very important aspects: health, education, economy, and politics. उन सब के अंदर जितना भी gender gap है, वो ये calculate करता है. Again, जो workplace gender gap है, वो सारे issues है that this particular index doesn't मतलब calculate very effectively. मतलब पार्लियामेंट वैसे जॉब्स के अंदर इट कैलकुलेट्स, बट बाकी में नहीं करता. तो उनके अंदर यू कैन, इवन इफ अ डिस्कशन कम्स ऑन वर्कप्लेस जेंडर गैप, यू कैन ऑलवेज से कि द कंट्री आल्सो लैक्स जेंडर गैप इन these areas, and it is very visible from the global gender gap index. So that is also something that you can use. Why this becomes very important, this particular index, is क्योंकि इंडिया की रैंकिंग in this index is very low. We are at 135 out of 146. So we are at the bottom 5 percentile, I think, of this particular index. And there are multiple reasons for this also. So we'll see what are the things that we are doing to improve our ranking, and हम particular चीजों में इस इतने low rank पर क्यों हैं. This report is again released by the World Economic Forum. That is why you can see a high number of countries signing up for it. That is 146. India's ranking has improved slightly since 2021. From 142, we have reached 135. And the top ranking countries for this metric is again Iceland, Finland, Norway, New Zealand, Sweden. Nordic, Scandinavian countries that you can see. So again, how it calculates this particular gender gap would be in 4 things. A would be political empowerment, the percentage of women in parliament and in ministerial positions. This is the only metric wherein you see that India ka ranking would be very nice. That is 48 out of 146. And the reason is the 33% reservation that we have, say, in Panchayati Raj institutes also, and the reservation that we have in different parliament positions for women. So those things you can't see in every country, and that is one of the reasons that we rank very well in this particular metric. In all other metrics, we rank very low because of the things that we have currently. Second would be economic participation and opportunity. Now, percentage of women in labor, wage equality for similar work, and earned income. Those are the things that we measure through economic participation. So when you discuss about job gender discrimination, wage disequality is something that it measures, but how many people are you employing in those all the offices or everything, उसमें बहुत effective नहीं है. But again, it measures everything in terms of the women in labor, wage equality, earned income, things like these. So there also we are at 141 rank, because we could see that जो wage inequality है, that is very high in India than other countries. Even though we have a lot of new initiatives to include women, say labor and women in workforce, but the wage equality is something that we still have to work a lot upon. That is why lower ranking there. Education attainment, again, literacy rate and enrollment rates. Again, since we have quotas for women in schools and colleges, and we have a lot of say initiatives such as Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, that is why we have decent ranking, that is 114. Again, not very high, but a lot of things have been done, so ranking better hai. And last would be health and survival. That is the sex ratio at birth and health life expectancy. So matlab, that is where India ranks the last, matlab 146 out of 146, because of the female killing that we see at a very young age in villages and in say tier 3 cities, and also the life expectancy that we have, or health expectancy we have for women, because of the number of diseases that women face due to malnourishment, due to low iron deficiency. उन चीजों की वजह से जो इंडिया में होता है, that is why we rank the last in this particular metric. So if anyone ever asks how is the health and survival for women in India, this is a very strong information point that you can give. Ki global gender gap index mein we are the last ranking country out of 146 countries. That goes on to show the level of improvement that we have in our health and survival rates for women, right? Two important things that I noticed, that what are we doing to improve our ranking, because we all know ki what are the things that we are bad at, जिसकी वजह से ये ranking इतनी गिर रही है, but we should also know कि what are we doing currently to improve these. So economic participation in health and survival के लिए बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, सुकन्या समृद्धि योजना, महिला पुलिस, or the female entrepreneurship that we are promoting, all these things are helping us improve our ranking. Now the 4 things that I have mentioned are very important 4 things. So go back and research upon those 4 things. See, बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ योजना है क्या? I know a lot of people would know कि होता क्या है, but again, like you didn't know specifically global gender gap index था क्या, but now you know the information about it. Similarly, read upon that, because it is a very simple, very basic yojana that anyone can ask you in a PI. So you should have information that what it is generally. So Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana is again a very important yojana. So go and read about it. Baki Mahila Police and female entrepreneurship is general topics that you should have information about. Ki what is the level of female entrepreneurship in India, female entrepreneurs from India, maybe people at a higher hierarchy or CXO positions in India that are females. Things like these are very important to know. Or maybe what are the initiatives by the government or other incubation centers for female entrepreneurship. Those things you should have an idea about. And second is political reservation. We already know government has reserved 33% of the seats in Panchayati Raj institutes for men, and other initiatives that government takes to reserve seats for women in the parliament also. Those things help us say lower this gender gap in political empowerment at least. So that is all the information that we have for global gender gap index. Again, this discussion is very prevalent in your VATs and GDPIs. So something that you can always use. 3 things that you should always remember is A, what it is. Secondly, India ranks very low here. Third, that India still does decently in political and education because of the policies that government has brought out. And fourth, that health and survival mein India ranks the least because of all the issues and because of the female feticide that we see at a very early age, the female killing that we see. Uske wajah se jo bhi issues ho rahe, that is why India ranks the last. So that is something that everyone should know about. Now, any questions on global gender gap index we have?
Hello, sir. This is Subhash.
Go on.
So like I have, like across the indices, I have seen the Nordic countries being the top one. Is there any like administrative policies that they follow due to which they are where they are?
There are. So a lot of, again, these countries are not very capitalism based. That is one. Secondly, they care more about their people. The policies that they come out are more social in their nature. So those are a few reasons that why these Nordic and Scandinavian countries rank higher in these rankings. Thirdly, when you see the standard of living in these countries, because of lower populations also and because of better facilities and closeness to resources, I think these countries are able to provide a lot to its, say, population. And one of the most important thing that I see always is the standard of living. If the standard of living for a particular country is nice, then all these metrics generally weigh your country at a higher ranking. things like global gender gap again. Matlab, a lot of policies have come out in these countries that has caused them to reach at this particular stage, right? So those are certain reasons. And the mindset of the people in these particular countries are also very high. Now, things like female killing at birth, that is something that comes out of the mindset that people have, right? So mindset of people in these countries is far developed and far evolved than countries like India. So those are certain reasons that we have.
Okay, sir.
Cool. Any other questions?
So also I heard like high tax rates are there in these countries, Nordic.
Right, could be one of the reasons. Again, matlab, if the again, I'm not very aware of the high tax rates that there are prevalent in the Nordic countries, but even if there are, the reason could be that the government again gets a lot of income from matlab, people, and it spends very easily on these people. So one of the important metrics that I used to follow was the corruption metric. Uske andar bhi, if you see, these countries would rank very highly because of the low corruption rates that we see in these countries.
Actually, these countries have the lowest corruption rates in the world.
Right.
Money that they get from the taxpayers is actually used for the welfare of the people, and that's why people are happy. That's one of the reasons.
Exactly. So I have also included matlab, World Happiness Index matlab, iske andar. So there also we can see a lot of things, but people are generally very happy in these countries. Someone is raising their hand. Yeah, Adamya.
But sir, as far as my knowledge about these Scandinavian and Nordic countries goes, these countries have actually the lowest corporate tax rates in the world globally, and they actually have become the tax havens.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we actually claim that they have the highest tax? I mean, isn't it contradictory? I mean, I might be wrong, but need some clarification on that.
No. Tax rates like 55% tax is there in Norway, and that's.
I also don't think they have low tax rates. These are not the tax havens specifically.
Yeah.
Because for a fact, I also know that Denmark also have around 55%. I think tax rates. They have high tax.
Okay. I'm sorry, sir. I must be mistaken. I'm really sorry.
No, it's fine, sir. But again, a very important point. Since we've just come out on this specific topic, read about tax havens also. I think not everyone would be aware about tax havens. So again, becomes a very interesting topic that can come on GDPA. Something that I always used to do during my GDPA preparation was ki whatever topic we are discussing, for example, we do this topic. Uske andar se if you find certain small things or certain small nuggets that you think could be a different topic altogether that you can research about, read that in your leisure time, because as much knowledge you have for these PIs, that is better, because PIs they can ask you anything out of the blue. So it's always better to have some tidbits about these things and to display your knowledge. So again, tax havens is something that everyone should read about. Cool. So the next index is a very interesting one. That is the Henley Passport Index. Before going on to the what it is there anyone who knows about what Henley Passport Index is?
Is it about which country has the strongest passport in the world as to you can get entry into the maximum number of countries is the strongest country?
Exactly. I think someone else also raised their hand, but that is what the Henley Passport Index is. So again, during COVID also, it becomes very important to know about what a passport index is. Why is it important? So rightly mentioned, Henley Passport Index is the original ranking of all the world's passport according to the number of destination their holders can access without a prior visa. So it was launched in 2006 only and includes all the 199 different passports. So again, why it has all the countries is because it just needs the data points that it gets from the airport regularity offices from internationally. So इसलिए data सारा आ जाता है. It is created by the chairman of Henley and Partners. Again, not something that you need to know about. India's ranking is something that you can know about. That is around 83 out of the 189 countries, and it has improved from 84 only. Because in the rankings में बहुत सारे changes नहीं आते, since removing the visa restrictions doesn't happen very often. ऐसा every year ऐसा नहीं होता कि बहुत सारी countries में हो रहा होता है या you get a lot of visa removals. It happens significantly if you have maybe increased your relations with a particular country, yeah, if you have introduced different policies that other countries benefit from, and if you get a understanding from a country, so you can get the visa removed. Top ranking countries again are Japan, Singapore, Germany, South Korea. These are countries who are very powerful. You'll also see America, Britain, Australia, Canada, all in these top rankings. So these are people who other countries respect. Secondly, whose governments are also something either the countries fear or respect. So those are the reasons कि इनको इतना सारा viability क्यों मिलता है in their visa free arrivals. So I'll explain also how this score is calculated. For each travel destination, if no visa is required for a passport holder, or even if a visa on arrival, a visitor's permit, or an ETA can be accepted. ETA is an electronic travel authority authorization that you get. Matlab, you can just get it online. So then also the passport gets 1 point. So for example, if we have visa on arrival in a country like Thailand for Indians, so we get 1 point for that. So that is how you calculate the Henley Passport Index. We have a lot of data points for this also. Matlab, again, Japan becomes the highest ranking country with 193 countries accepting their passport. Then South Korea and Singapore, then America, Britain, Canada, Australia. All these countries have more than 180 countries accepting their passport. So that is why they rank very highly on these Henley passport indexes. Very sweet and simple index, but very important if anyone asks you matlab, if the discussion comes on how strong a country is, if you want to give out a very different idea of a different perspective, you can always discuss this also Henley passport index kya hai, and these are the rankings, and that is how you maintain relations with the country. That is why you maybe score higher or lower in these rankings. So again, a discussion that you can have always in your VATs, PIs, GTs very easily. Was there anyone who raised their hand? Okay, I think no one did. Okay, so again, Henley Passport Index, I think I have used this index once during my PI also, wherein we were discussing, I think it was an IIFT ka interview, wherein we were discussing international relations with India and which countries have good international relations, which countries have bad international relations. So when the interviewer asked me a question about say our relations with Israel, I just discussed those relations because time there was some Israel war that was happening, and in that once my answer ended, I just attached this information also. We also have the Henley Passport Index, which helps us understand the relations between these countries and how many countries we can visit visa free, and which countries trust us, which countries don't trust us. And it was just an interesting point that they also discussed with me. They asked me, which is the country which has the highest ranking according to you? Then I told them Japan. They asked me, why not America? I told them America also has a higher ranking. And I remember this data point 180 plus. So I told them America also has 180 plus. They were certainly impressed. I have information about what an passport index could be. Yep. Sorry, someone. Shubham, you raised your hand. And Amar also. Let's take Shubham's question, then Amar.
Hi, sir. Sir, my question is the ranking of the passport also depend upon that how much trustworthiness is the citizen of that country?
No. So 1 point is given if any other country accepts your passport with a visa on arrival or an electronic visa or has no visa requirement. How to get this no visa or visa on arrival is the relation between the countries. So the passport indirectly calculates that, but not directly. Directly, it gives 1 point to every country that you can travel without a visa or with a visa on arrival. Amar, you had a question.
As you were mentioning that Japan is ranked better than the US. Any specific reason for that, or we can say Japan is having better relations globally?
I think the social respect that Japan enjoys, the culture that Japan has, and the ties that Japan has with the country. I think those are 3 reasons that we can see why Japan is ranked so high. So these countries like Japan, Singapore, you can see a lot of business that countries get either from these countries, or they respect these countries a lot socially. They don't see a lot of threat coming from these countries. So that is why they rank these countries highly. America, say a lot of countries might feel threat, but they know that they have a lot of economic gains from America. That is why they give Americans visa free. Similar for British passports or maybe Canadian, Australian passports. But countries like South Korea, Japan, they know that these are countries that they don't have a lot of threat with and they want to maintain good relations with. So they give them visas accordingly. Again, India has a lot of say controversial happenings and a lot of controversial stances also that they take. So India doesn't always rank very highly here.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Cool. I think we have no other questions. But again, Henley Index passport index is something that interviewers generally enjoy a lot because बाकी चीजें are more theoretical indexes that you generally hear कि HDI क्या है, ease of doing business क्या है. Henley Passport Index you don't always hear, so they also enjoy discussing these unorthodox things, these different ideas. That is all about it. Next we have the Global Hunger Index. So Global Hunger Index again becomes very important because India as a country doesn't have very good ranking in these indexes, and hunger and malnutrition is a problem that India has always faced. So that is why we are discussing this particular global hunger index. Again, GHI is a tool for comprehensively measuring and tracking global hunger at a global, regional, and national level. Who is it published by? Concern Worldwide and Wealth Hunger H Life is not important for us. We can ignore this, but we should know कि GHI report आती है हर साल. India's ranking again is in the lowest percentile, 107 out of 121, and पहले भी इसकी 101 out of 116 countries है. तो we have not seen any improvement. वो बस गिरा ही हमारे से. Top ranking countries we see are Belarus, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Chile, China, Croatia, and these countries we see is because एक तो population कम है, countries छोटी होती है, and they don't face hunger issues because they are maybe more dominated by their farming capacities. Government is easily able to provide their people with मतलब food, and poverty ratings भी बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है countries. That is why you see these countries ranking very highly in these indexes. And worst ranking countries are very easily identified, that are the African countries. So Chad, Democratic Republic of Congo, Madagascar, Central African Republic, Yemen, countries like these are the worst ranking countries. So unke reasons we are very prevalent. African countries, very poverty stricken, don't have a lot of food, a lot of calamities take place. Those are the issues that we see, right? Now, 4 measures that are used for GHI are, again, it is a 100-point scale, and the lower score that you have is the better. So it's an opposite scale, and 4 measures used होते हैं. First, undernourishment, the share of population whose caloric intake is insufficient. That is 1/3 of the score that is calculated. So 1/3, 1/6, 1/6, 1/3 ऐसे करते हैं, because undernourishment and child mortality are more important than the other 2 metrics that we have right now. Second is child stunting under the age of 5 who have low height for their particular age, reflecting chronic undernutrition. So child stunting जैसी problems are very prevalent in these countries. Malnutrition, child stunting in these African countries बहुत prevalent है. Third is child wasting under the age of 5 who have low weight for their height, reflecting undernutrition. Again, very important for these countries कि वहाँ पे undernutrition बहुत ज़्यादा है क्योंकि weight बहुत कम होता है in these countries. And last is child mortality, children who die before their 5th birthday, reflecting on the fatal mix of inadequate nutrition and the healthcare system in the country, unhealthy environments in the country, the diseases that you have in these countries, the level of healthcare that you have in these countries, that is very well reflected in child mortality. So global hunger index also encompasses a lot of things about the malnutrition in the country, about the nourishment levels in the country, and about the mortality in the country. So वो GHI में easily calculate हो जाता है. Now, Indian government has questioned this GHI a lot of times because India की ranking बहुत low आ रही है. Whereas we can see कि India की hunger ranking in comparison to countries like say Bangladesh, Sri Lanka भी बहुत कम है. Those countries also have a ranking of around 60-70. So it becomes a very big question कि India की global hunger index इतना low क्यों है. And there are 2 reasons that Indian government sees. First reason is that GHI uses an erroneous measure of hunger, that 3 out of the 4 variables are related to only children. That cannot represent the entire population. So you could have also seen the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th measure. They are only specific to children. They're not considering the older population. They're not considering the farming outcomes of a particular country. So this is also a very erroneous measure because बहुत ही छोटे एक strata को कर रहे हैं and they are reflecting it over the entire population. So that is one problem that we see. And second is कि जो 4th indicator है the child the first indicator the undernourishment वाला, उसके अंदर it is based on an opinion poll that is conducted on a very small sample size of 3,000 people. So which is not very efficient for a country like India. So that also becomes a very big issue for India because in other countries जहाँ पे the population is lower, therein it can be a decent indicator. But for a country like India, which houses 1/5 of the population, having a sample size of 3,000 is a very small metric. So that can be an issue. Those are the 2 issues that Indian government sees. And that is the reason that I generally have said in the beginning also that these indexes are not the perfect indicators of what a country's level could be. But it is very well indicated that if itna kam ranking hai, तो hunger would not be a very good metric for India. मतलब कुछ ना कुछ issues prevalent होंगे. If there were no issues, then you would at least rank in the top 25%. That is the contention here. So that is what we have for global hunger index. Any questions on this or any of the other indexes that we've discussed? We can discuss that now. Admaya, yes.
Sir, ironically, our neighboring countries who are actually reeling under economic crisis,
right,
and a seemingly hyperinflation, they have been put ahead of India in such rankings, given the food crisis and their inability to import agricultural food and basic needs and essential commodities.
Right.
So it also highlights one of the big I mean, I would say a big discrepancy in this global hunger index.
Right. Totally taken. I see that global hunger index always isn't the perfect metric to give out rankings, because we could see Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, these countries getting a ranking of around 70, 80, 60. Even Pakistan ranks very highly than India. So these countries have better rankings than India due to multiple of those reasons. Two reasons we have very well identified, because ek to we're not taking up the whole population, we're taking only children, and children ke andar India faces a lot of issue. And secondly, India is a very large country. Taking out sample sizes of 3,000 is a very small metric, which would every year be an erroneous idea for India. So that is the issues that we see.
Sir, one more thing. I mean, India is one of the biggest producers in the world for staples such as rice and wheat, and also for pulses and millets. So we also have the ration program going on for, serving the BPL families, right? So is the
Exactly.
supply chain broken or the distribution system broken? For which
So I think there are two reasons for this. A, the distribution system is definitely broken due to the corruption that we see and due to the low, say, accessibility to these things, even after all the initiatives that we've drawn out. And the second issue that I see is that a lot of these things that are covered under rationing system generally don't help people get better nourishment. So malnutrition, low caloric intake will still be a problem for India, even if they have introduced this rationing system. तो ये जो underweight होता है, low height होता है, insufficient caloric intake होता है, because primarily a very big vegetarian nation also. So these food intakes are not also able to satisfy the nutrition requirements of the people generally very easily. So those are also reasons. So the distribution system is also broken, and secondly, we're not only seeing how many people are able to eat food, we're also seeing the amount of calories that they are getting. So maybe they're able to survive of that food, but maybe caloric nutrition इतना ज़्यादा नहीं है कि वो malnutrition ही रह जाते हैं. So that is a very big important metric that we have to see here.
So, actually, the government had also launched a program during COVID, right? But they were giving, 5 kg of, normal food to, so basically wheat and all to 80 crore families in India. So
Right.
people in India. So yeah.
Yeah, those are the initiatives. Even the Delhi government took out a lot of initiatives to say provide food very easily to people who are affected by COVID and also come under the poverty line. So a lot of initiatives are taken by the Indian government. Government से तो बहुत सारे initiatives आते हैं, but 3 reasons. A, corruption बहुत आता है. Second, distribution system भी broken, accessibility issues होते हैं. And third, we're not able to hit these index metrics. So you have to also understand कि कुछ गवर्नमेंट्स होती है जो ट्राई ऐसा करती है कि वो इंडेक्स मेट्रिक्स को हिट कर सके. इंडिया भी ट्राई करती है, बट वो कैलोरिक इंटेक, न्यूट्रिशन इतना नहीं मिल पाता, जिसकी वजह से हम लो रैंक करते हैं. तो these metrics are not being hit, but maybe people are able to access food. तो वो इशू रहता है. So that is where global hunger index still comes into play. You can very easily tell कि why India is below in these rankings, why India has low nutrition. You can differentiate now between what is a nutritious diet and what is just people accessing food. So those things are very important also for India. So because ये question ना बहुत generally आता है कि when you compare India with its neighboring countries, people when they ask you to do this is a very opposite comparison that you see. Generally we see India always being higher than these neighboring countries, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan. इससे generally higher होता है. But global hunger index is something जिसके अंदर lower है. So always a very interesting discussion point for people with their interviews. That is all for global hunger index. Now I have 2 more indexes. That is the World Happiness Report and World Press Freedom Index. I have included these indexes because World Press Freedom Index became very famous in India recently because of all the press corruption and all the issues that we are seeing with the journalists, and also the Freedom Index that came out recently. And also the World Happiness Report is just something that everyone should know about, because again, the way I told, unorthodox, different type of discussion that you can have with your interviewer. World Happiness Report is something also that comes out in discussions generally. कभी कभार GDs के अंदर भी, कभी कभार VATs के अंदर भी, PS के अंदर भी. VATs के अंदर generally आ जाता है कि about how happy are we, what is the real meaning of life, things like these. ये बहुत easily आ जाता है, right? Philosophical questions. So therein World Happiness Report is something that you can easily quote. But I have not provided again detailed descriptions about it. what I'll request everyone is कि take these two last indexes and research upon them yourself. अब इन सब के अंदर I have given out notes. I'll still suggest everyone to make their own notes on pen and paper. If that is something, yeah, maybe make their own notes on their documents or whatever. Because that way, A, you will be able to retain this information. तो आपको वापस याद नहीं करना पड़ेगा बार बार. And secondly, मतलब you will have it somewhere in the format that you can easily read. So it won't be that you're coming back to my notes and you're not able to understand what I've written specifically. So if you want to do that, do that. But for these two metrics, for these two indexes, World Happiness Report and World Press Freedom Index, don't leave them out. Read them on your own. And if you can, then do it by tonight. I know that khatam why everyone would want to enjoy, but take out just half an hour right now only and research about these two metrics. And then I would share notes about these two metrics also. So don't need to worry ki, you won't get them from me. Later on, I'll share them, but it would always be beneficial if you do it on yourself. So that is all for the India in indexes that we had. The last thing would be how to use this information. I think I have discussed that immensely throughout the presentation. Ki VAT mein you get a lot of relevant topics. VAT में topics upon global economies या global मतलब competitiveness या things like human development, things like hunger, things like gender discrimination, happiness, ये सारे topics बहुत prevalent है VATs के अंदर या group discussions के अंदर भी. तो यहाँ पे even if you know only these 8 indexes ना, you can write a lot of things. You can include these indexes very easily everywhere. So that is the benefit of having these indexes in your pocket कि तुम कहीं भी use कर सकते हो. And lastly, personal interview में when I say hook questions, that is something that I also used to do in personal interviews and that I've told. If someone asks you a question, you don't have to be braggy कि मुझे सब पता तो तुम बता रहे हो. You first answer that question and then tell them कि मतलब if someone is asking you कि why do you think hunger is such a big issue in India? Yeah, why do you think the PDA system is correct in India, is broken in India? I have been asked about the public distribution system in India in my MDI interview for no specific reason. वो बस उन्होंने पूछ लिया था because we were just having that conversation. तो कभी कभार हो जाता है. तो इसलिए always whenever someone asks you like this, you can always complete your answer with this कि that is the answer, but I also know this कि global hunger index में ये सब issues है. So always use that as a hook answer so that they are impressed by what you've told and they can also ask you more on that. So that is all that I have for this particular session. Now, if you have any questions, I'll take them up right now. If you have any questions later on also after you've gone through the presentation, the recording and maybe your own research, reach back to me on my WhatsApp and I'll reply to you. I think my number would be available on the group. If it is not, I'll just mention here.
What was the term you said for MDI interview?
What was the what?
What was the, I mean, you just said, right? I mean, that you would been asked something in the
right.
MDI.
So I think we were discussing something about because COVID के time पर ही we were I also don't remember very clearly, but public distribution system के बारे में we were discussing the rationing system कि how are people getting grains in India and is it still working or broken. So therein I answered मतलब जो भी मेरे पास answer था because I have prepared on that. COVID के time पे we prepared on those topics. But उसके end में I talked about the global hunger index and I told कि क्या issues है India के अंदर in regards to hunger. तो discussion wasn't on hunger. Discussion किसी और चीज के ऊपर था. But उसके बाद वो hunger पे आ गया. Then they asked me, why do you think hunger is an issue in India? Yeah, why do we rank so low in this ranking according to you? So now, since I have introduced this, I know the answers to this. So मैंने बहुत easily बता दिया. Well, I've mentioned my mobile number also. If anyone wants to take note of it, you can. Baki, when we share this PPT, you'll anyway get. So you can use this. Questions? Yep. Adamya, yep.
Sir, thank you so much for this session. I actually was looking for such a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
No problem, man. No problem. I think I have one more session planned for you guys. That would be India versus the world, and we'll take out a lot of new interesting topics there also. So my aim with the sessions are only ki you have additional information to use in your interviews. You can use this knowledge as an addition to whatever answers you're giving. That just increases the knowledge that you have in front of the interviews and higher chances of getting better interview marks. That is the only reason that I am doing these sessions. Cool. Any other questions or can we close this? I think Vesibi, we've gone overboard. It's been 1 hour.
Sorry, sir. Can you just flash the number?
Yep. I'll put that on the chat. Don't worry. Cool. And also thank you everyone who pitched in with all the information and everything. I think a lot of things were cleared out to people also. And यही चीज है, मतलब the things that we discussed in between also, things like tax havens or things like these, उसके ऊपर भी जाके research कर लो. मतलब it's always good to have these things in your pocket, because it takes only 10 minutes to research about these things, but gives out a lot of impact during the intakes. All right, ठीक है, let's close the session. You're free to leave. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.